Thanks very much for having me. I'm delighted to be here. As Ruth has said, I am the managing editor for the Cochrane Developmental, Psychosocial and Learning Problems Group. It's quite a mouthful. We are one of 53 Cochrane review groups across the globe and one of 2 on the island of Ireland, both of which are based in Northern Ireland. The other group, the Cochrane Methodology Review Group, is led by Professor Mike Clark, and it is based at the Northern Ireland Network for Trials Methodology Research, and both groups are at Queen's University. So over the next 20 minutes, I'd just like to discuss systematic reviews, the use of systematic reviews as a research method, and some opportunities for research. Hopefully by the end of that, you'll have an idea as to what systematic reviews are, why they matter, the steps involved in conducting one, and how you too can get involved. So Cochrane is an independent organisation, and in true Cochrane style, I must disclose any conflict of interest. So first of all, as I've already mentioned, I'm the managing editor of CDPLPG. We're housed within the School of Sociology, Social Work and Social Policy at Queen's, and we produce systematic reviews of interventions, prognosis and diagnostic test accuracy on topics within our scope, so developmental, psychosocial and learning problems. I'm also involved in a Cochrane systematic review of an intervention, which is looking at centre-based early education interventions for improving school readiness. I think we've established that the need for systematic reviews is well established. Healthcare providers, researchers, policymakers are inundated with unmanageable amounts of information, including evidence from healthcare research, and it's unlikely that they're going to have the time, the skills, or the resources to find, appraise, and interpret the evidence and incorporate that evidence into healthcare decisions. Fraser and Dunstan, in an article in the BMJ, had stated in 2010 that for trainees in cardiac imaging, it would take them to read 40 papers a day, 5 days a week, for 11 years to bring them up to speed with the knowledge in their area. And that is a very narrow field. And by the time they had done that, another 82,000 relevant papers, equating to another 8 years of reading, would be possible. This problem of information overload is not new. Dave Sackett found 20 years ago that in order to keep up to date in internal medicine, it would be necessary to read 17 articles a day for 365 days a year. Quite simply, it's impossible and it's inconceivable. This problem is confounded by 2 points, the first of which here was first mentioned by Archie Cochrane, whose Cochrane collaboration is named after, and he identified that most new information is of poor quality. Second point, in one of a highly cited and read paper by John Ioannidis in 2005, which showed that most research findings are false for most research designs for most fields. Quite simply, they're based on single studies that lack the power to show effects. On the basis of that, Richard Smith had said, it makes no sense to try and read everything. What we need are summaries. Grant and Booth in 2009 had summarised 14 different types of summaries, which are displayed in this map. So we see narrative reviews, we also see mapping reviews, scoping reviews, rapid reviews, and of course the systematic review. Of these reviews, systematic reviews are the most well known and to date the main means of knowledge synthesis activities within healthcare. They provide unbiased evidence of the impact of interventions, and it's for this reason that they remain at the top of the hierarchy of evidence pyramid, with expert opinion actually at the bottom. And in a world concerned with growing budget constraints, workforce challenges, and the need to demonstrate the impact, both clinical and cost effectiveness of interventions, it is likely that they will become increasingly important. Indeed, many grants will not be accepted unless there is a systematic review highlighting a need for more primary research. In short, systematic reviews take us from this, info-obesity, or infoxication, as it's also known, to info-savvy. Systematic reviews are an effective and efficient scientific technique which integrate existing information and provide data for decision-making. And they do this by identifying, appraising, and synthesizing research-based evidence into a single paper, thereby reducing the volume of articles to read and presenting it in an accessible format. In order to understand systematic reviews as a research method, we need to understand what it is. So essentially, it's a method which attempts to collate all empirical evidence that fits pre-specified eligibility criteria in order to answer a specific research question, with a view to helping clinicians, patients, and other stakeholders make informed decisions about treatment. Statistical methods may or may not be used to summarise the results of the included studies. Thus, unlike other reviews like traditional narrative reviews, systematic reviews adhere to a strict design which is articulated in a protocol to ensure that they are, one, more comprehensive, and two, minimise bias, thereby providing more reliable findings from which conclusions can be drawn and decisions made. These reviews do not reflect the views of authors, and they are not based on a partial selection of the literature. They encompass everything. The key characteristics of a systematic review are that they involve a clearly stated set of objectives with predefined eligibility criteria for studies, an explicit reproducible methodology, a systematic search that attempts to identify all studies that would meet the eligibility criteria, an assessment of the validity of those findings within the studies, for example, through an assessment of the risk of bias, and a systematic presentation and synthesis of the characteristics and findings of the included studies. What then is a Cochrane systematic review? Well, Cochrane reviews are systematic reviews that investigate the effects of interventions for prevention, treatment, and rehabilitation, and where possible, provide an estimate of the size of any benefits or harms of the intervention. They also assess, as mentioned, the accuracy of a diagnostic test for a given condition in a specific patient group and setting. Like other systematic reviews, they seek to identify, select, synthesize, and critically appraise all high-quality primary research relevant to a particular question in order to answer it. And like non-Cochrane reviews, may or may not use statistical methods such as meta-analysis. Unlike other systematic reviews, however, reviewers must adhere to guidelines which are published in the Cochrane Handbook for Systematic Reviews of Interventions. They are prepared according to a structured format and using Review Manager, which is software provided by the collaboration. They are also living documents in that they're regularly updated every 2 years. And they're held in the parent database, which is maintained by Cochrane. Cochrane systematic reviews are recognised as the gold standard for high quality, trusted information on health, and they're published in the Cochrane Library. And this is just the first page of the Cochrane Library, which you can see here. All residents of Northern Ireland have free access to this library, which is provided by R&D, and equally in the Republic of Ireland, you have free access, which is provided by the Health Research Board. The library has an impact factor of 6.035, so it has great reach. It comprises approximately 78 databases or so, the most important one being the Cochrane database of systematic reviews. This is where the protocols and the reviews are housed, and they predominantly encompass intervention reviews, but they may also have methodology reviews, diagnostic test accuracy reviews, and overviews of reviews. Another example of a database is the Cochrane Central Register of Controlled Trials. Conducting a review then, there are approximately 6 steps First, defining an appropriate healthcare question. The second, developing a review protocol. The third, searching the literature. The fourth, assessing the studies. The fifth, combining the results. And the sixth, placing the findings in context. And I'll just take you through each of these now briefly. So the first, defining an appropriate healthcare question. Systematic reviews, as I've mentioned, are used most often to assess the effectiveness of particular interventions. And when an intervention is being considered, a good review question will be a clear statement of the objective of the review and will consider the patient, the population or the problem, the intervention of interest, the comparison, what the main alternative to the intervention is, and the outcomes that you're seeking to measure or achieve. So just following on from Brian's presentation, this is what your question should encompass, the PICO, and if you get that right, the rest should fall into place. The next stage is to develop your protocol, which summarises all of those details. The protocol is basically the plan or the set of steps that need to be followed in the study. The protocol should describe the rationale for the review, the objectives of the review, and the methods that will be used in the review, first of all to locate, to select and critically appraise studies, and also to collect and analyse the data from the studies. It should be well thought out, and it should explain in detail all steps of the review. So everything you expect to encounter should go into your protocol. Searching the literature. Authors need to carefully select the published and the unpublished literature for all relevant studies relating to the intervention. For the search to be unbiased, it must search all literature, including grey literature, in trial registers and reports written in languages other than English. So working with a trial search coordinator, authors will first of all develop the search for the electronic databases. This search will be developed for use in Medline and then adapted as appropriate for the other databases. As I mentioned, the authors must also search for information from other sources. This includes websites, be it Google Scholar. They may source key journals when necessary, and other grey literature, technical reports, conference proceedings, and trial registers. So this is a search for everything. They'll also have to search the references of the included reports in case anything may have been missed erroneously by the electronic search strategy, and they may need to contact key authors and experts in the field. That will be key organisations, if you are working or looking at the effects of a drug, pharmaceutical companies. And all of this seeks to reduce bias, so publication bias, where studies that have mainly positive results tend to be published, and also language bias, because reviews are often written in languages other than English, and we want to capture everything. This search process is documented. The authors will need to include the search strategy in the protocol and all search strategies in the review. They need to document search dates and the number of records retrieved. And they'll also have a study flow diagram which documents the selection process. The next step then is to assess the studies. So once you've got your relevant studies identified, or possible relevant studies identified, I should say, you then assess them for eligibility. So in your protocol, you will have set out specific inclusion criteria, which you will then screen the studies and see if they meet that criteria. And this protects the review from allegations of investigative bias, where the reviewer may unconsciously select studies for inclusion based on their results. The task is performed by 2 review authors, again to minimise bias, and there are several stages. So first of all, duplicates are removed, followed by obvious irrelevant records. The authors then screen the records at titles and abstracts, and following through to those at full text. Studies will then be assessed for methodological quality. So here they're assessing the research methods used in the study to determine how reliable the results are likely to be. And Cochrane has developed a risk of bias tool to facilitate that process. It covers 7 domains, and they are random generation, allocation concealment, both of which are looking at selection bias. They look at blinding of the participants and the personnel, blinding of the outcome assessment, attrition bias from incomplete data, selective reporting bias, and any other sources of bias not captured by those domains. Again, that task is performed independently by 2 review authors so as to avoid bias. Finally, of those studies that are deemed eligible for inclusion, the authors will extract the results, and that's usually done in a piloted data extraction form. The next stage is then to synthesize the findings. So put simply, you're aggregating the results of the individual studies to produce the final result as regards the clinical effectiveness or feasibility of the intervention. And the type of synthesis that's chosen will fit the data. So meta-analysis may be performed where studies are similar with regards to the participants, their interventions and outcomes. If the data is heterogeneous, I can't say that word, then the authors will not conduct a meta-analysis, but they'll just provide a narrative description of the study results. If they do produce a meta-analysis, they will also produce graphs known as forest plots. The next stage is to place the findings in context. And this is essentially your discussion. That will look at the overall completeness, applicability, and the quality of the body of evidence. Just in relation to quality, there is a grade approach which has been developed to help authors assess the quality of the evidence across 5 criteria. And essentially, the authors will decide whether the evidence allows for a robust conclusion as regards the objectives of the review. They'll also look at the strengths and limitations of the review, things that may have happened which have been outside their control. And they'll comment on the findings of the review and how those fit with other studies and other reviews, and whether those other reviews were conducted systematically. And they'll look at the implications of the findings, both for practitioners and researchers. How can I get involved? I'm sure you're all desperate to do a Cochrane systematic review. Well, personally, they are invaluable training opportunities for those who do wish to get involved. And there are several ways in which you can. So you may wish to author a review, comment on a review either as a peer referee or as a consumer representative or as a translator. So authors then, if we start at the first one, they are usually people with content expertise in their chosen field or who have statistical expertise. And it is useful to have some experience of primary or secondary research, or to at least to collaborate with those that do. Indeed, undertaking a systematic review should involve an academic and a practice partnership. If you have an idea for a systematic review of an intervention or a diagnostic test that you would like to conduct, then just contact the relevant review group. As I said, there's 53 of them, so one of them will be able to help you. Our group deals with, as I've mentioned, developmental, psychosocial and learning problems. So if you have a title, come to me and we can discuss it. If you don't have a title but you'd like to get involved, again, still come to me because we have existing titles that need updating because perhaps the author teams have moved on and they're just waiting on a new team and fresh blood to take them forward. If you don't wish to get involved in leading the review, but you would like to be involved in writing it, again, come to me because there are teams that have lost co-authors, they don't have the time to be involved anymore, and you may be able to contribute. As said, peer referees, we use peer referees to comment on all of our reviews. protocols as well, and they may provide content and methodological expertise. So if you feel you would be able to contribute in that way, please contact the relevant groups. You can also get involved as consumer representatives, and they can help to establish priority for reviews, write reviews, consult on reviews in progress, and again, assist with peer review. All of the reviews have a plain language summary, and it's something that academic authors struggle with, and consumer representatives may be able to help with that in particular, in making sure that their review reaches, has a wide reach, basically. We have a handful of consumer representatives. We haven't used them as fully as we would have liked, I'm ashamed to say, but it is something that we are working on to improve over the next few months. So if anybody is interested in becoming a consumer representative, please contact me. And translators. We're always looking for translators as well, because studies are published and conducted in languages other than English. So if you know a second language, can speak a second language, please let us know. And I've just put up the web link there. If you look at that link, it'll take you to the list of review groups, and you can see best where you fit in. Hopefully it's me, it should be me. So this is our website I've just put up. We have a very broad scope. We cover a multitude of issues, from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, cerebral palsy, dyslexia, daycare. We've published reviews on crisis interventions for people with borderline personality disorder, restorative justice conferencing for reducing recidivism in young offenders, kinship care for the safety, permanency and well-being of children removed from the home for maltreatment, cognitive behavioural interventions for children who have been sexually abused, and recently 2 reviews, one on methylphenidate and one on amphetamines for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Funding, by and large, is not provided by Cochrane for individuals to produce systematic reviews. Many of the authors are volunteers doing it in their own time. Having said that, they may be funded through other research or project grants. And one such opportunity that I would like to highlight to you today are the Cochrane Fellowships, which, as far as I'm aware, are unique to Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And I think these are an excellent opportunity for some of you here today. They are an annual scheme. It's due to be announced in March. And they aim to build capacity and systematic reviews on the island. Eligible participants are those working in health or social care who are resident in Ireland. And as it's a training scheme, you do not need knowledge or prior experience in conducting systematic reviews. That will be provided. You get access to free courses that are provided by Cochrane once you are recognised as an author of one of the reviews. You'll be funded, so your time will be protected for 2 days for 2 years to give you time to work on your review. And as I said, it's due to be announced in March. The application deadline is May, but if you are interested, I would urge you to contact the relevant review group now. The reason being that review groups are under enormous pressure, and it takes time to reach decisions. Also, as Brian has mentioned in his presentation, getting the question right can be challenging, and it's an iterative process, so work with the group and they will help you. You also need to get a supervisor in place, and that's going to take time as well. So the earlier you start it, the better. I think Gail Johnson's details are there, so you can contact her. It is on the R&D website as well, and please also check Cochrane Ireland. They have further information about it. Just putting up a list of some courses. So maybe you're not wanting or ready to take on a review, but you'd like to get some more knowledge. There's a number of courses that are being run over the next few months. These are all over Europe, from introductory courses to those that require a little bit more knowledge. There's a few more, one being held there in Belfast in June. Sorry, are you? Yeah, sorry. I got carried away. Free courses, which may be of more interest. They're online courses. Some of those provided by Cochrane are free, not all, as I said, until you become an author. The second one there I'd like you to draw your attention to is specifically targeting consumer representatives, and they are taking applications now. I'm not sure when the deadline ends. It is a free course and it's provided online. A final few things. There's upcoming events. The Cochrane Symposium being held in Birmingham and the Colloquium in Korea. They're quite expensive, so I will direct your attention to the first one. It's been held in Belfast and it's a very nominal fee. So if you can attend, I would suggest you go to that. That's it.